This episode is brought to you by 3-Step Yoga, a free guide for yoga teachers. Don't forget to check the description to grab yours. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Modern Yoga Talks. We have Erin Gorrie, straight from Canada. Erin, for those who don't know you, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jules. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Erin Gorrie, and yes, I hail from the northern border of Canada, and I am the owner of Muskoka Puppy Yoga.
Thank you for that, Erin. Can you tell us a little bit of story, well, what your life was before you tapped into the yoga path?
Absolutely. I've had yoga in my life, probably for about 30 years now. So it's always been present, but I've had many careers in my life, but the one that sort of transitioned me into this job was I was a police officer for 15 years. Well, sorry, 13 years. And I ended up having a major incident and I went off work. And in that time, I was healing and going through a journey of sort of rediscovery, and I decided to take my instructor trainer. And the plan was to go over to India, but COVID did not allow that. So it was right at the very beginning in 2020. So I did it online with this beautiful yoga studio from Goa, India. And I didn't necessarily have the thought to ever teach. I just really wanted to learn more and get more into my practice. And I was hoping it would help with my journey. And what happened was not, I could never have imagined in my wildest dreams how this has all turned out. Yeah, that's how I sort of got into the teaching aspect of yoga. And then puppy yoga. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. So I'll see if you want me to start talking about that yet.
What got you to yoga? Was that just because you said you've been doing it for 30 years? So
Yeah.
what gravitated you towards, I want to try yoga?
Yeah. Mainly I think it was just trying to learn a little bit about myself. Now, I didn't really start learning until I became a teacher. My practice on my own, I struggled to calm my mind, to lie in shavasana and just be in the class. In my 20s and 30s, I was in power yoga. So it was very much fitness orientated. That's why I went to it, because it was another avenue of fitness for me. I couldn't grasp the inner part of yoga in my 20s and 30s. I worked a very high-paced job. I was busy with kids. I just did not understand the being in the moment portion of it until I started taking my teacher training. And so that's what brought me there initially, would have been the fitness aspect way back when.
So, with being a yoga teacher now, I think majority of us started that way. We go into the 200 hour mainly just for ourselves, and then it ends up becoming so much more because I think the clarity brings it into perspective, right? Because I remember when I took my teacher training, I was so um, apprehensive, I think. And then when I took my teacher training, I had zero plan of becoming a teacher. Even after my 300, I was still like, I didn't see myself because I was very introverted. Plus, I have like public speaking issues, so that didn't really like land with me. But it takes you to a different path. And for you, you mentioned Muskoka Puppy Yoga. So this took like a different path for you. So for those who are listening who don't know about Muskoka Puppy Yoga, can you give us a bit of story about that? How you started that? What transpired in life that ended up becoming this is your thing?
Yes. Well, so as I said, I had gone off work after a major incident, and I spent probably 3 years sitting on my couch trying to sort of figure things out. I had taken my yoga instructor trainer at that time, had no intentions of ever teaching. And I realized that I'd wrapped my entire life around my job. So I didn't have hobbies. I didn't have anything I felt passionate about that I loved. I just really lost the ability to feel joy. My job slowly sucked that feeling out of me. So I was quite empty. And my therapist kept saying to me, Erin, you need to find joy. You need to find something that you're passionate about. And I went through lists of things in pages of things she gave me. I could not find anything that resonated with me, of like lists and lists of activities and hobbies and things. Nothing. And at the same time, my youngest son left and went to university. So I also went through this massive loss of becoming an empty nester, which some people find very exciting. It was not for me. Not only did I feel like I had lost my job, the identity that I had strongly identified with, then I felt like I lost this identity as mom too. So much happened. And my son started to struggle a little bit at school, and he was losing weight and he was having a lot of mental health issues just surrounding being alone and being away from home and all the pressures of school. So I said to him, let's go do a yoga practice together. Both my sons have done yoga with me, which has been wonderful. I just Googled a studio near his school and puppy yoga came up. And I went, what is puppy yoga? I mean, I'd heard of goat yoga, but I saw puppy. I was like, and then I remember all I could hear is my therapist, you need to find joy. And I was like, I think I just found joy. Yoga and puppies? Like, what could be better? So I signed us up immediately and we went to this class. And the feeling that I had in the class, you know, that it's funny because I've been trying to figure out ways to interpret this and to explain this to people. And what I figured out is in yoga, we work really hard at getting into that heart opening experience. With puppy yoga, you immediately are dropped into it. The second you walk in that room, your heart is exploding. It is opening and you forget everything. And that is exactly what we want you to do in yoga. So it did that for me. And I started to feel this wonderful, joyful feeling again. And I was happy and I was laughing. And then the movement in the yoga just felt different. And it was like, honestly, it was so incredible. So I left that class thinking, I just have to do this once a week. It has to be part of my therapy. But I live 2.5 hours north of Toronto. So I was like, how am I going to do this? This isn't going to work. So I just had to put a lot of limiting beliefs about myself aside. And I kept hearing this little voice saying, just do it, just start it. You can do this. You're a trained instructor. I was like, oh my God, no, I can't. I can't do this. I'm not an entrepreneur. I know nothing about business. So I kept pushing it aside, but the universe was pushing me because I kept hearing it, kept feeling it. And I thought, okay, I'll see if I can find a space. So I did that first. And then this beautiful couple that I'd met had a big studio space and they said, oh, absolutely, you can rent this. And I could rent it and pay for it myself. So I thought, well, worst case scenario, nobody comes. I just hang out with puppies for an hour by myself. And that was okay. But that's not what happened. I got a very beautiful breeder that does German Shepherd puppies that really loved the idea of the socialization aspect. Her puppies, she tries to socialize them often. So she loved the idea. And that was our first class. And slowly but surely, it's just progressed into this explosive, amazing, wonderful business that now I can't even imagine doing yoga without feeling that. Now I can do my own practice and the heart opening experience. Because I've felt it so profoundly, it's a lot easier to get back there, even when the puppies aren't there. Even though I don't love that. I like it when the puppies are around. It's my favorite now. But when I'm doing my own practice or I'm going to another studio, I can immediately get into that space.
I see it as like a booster, if you will.
Yeah.
If you're like struggling to connect, and when the puppies were present, everybody, just to give you guys a little bit of insight here, I thought for Erin's Muskoka Puppy Yoga one, and it was beautiful. It was just, you cannot expect it to not have good energy. And I think that's where that therapeutic aspect come in. Like everybody that, okay, well, not everybody, but some people that came it was their first time, they don't really know what to do, but having the puppies there, it removes the thinking mind. It removes that, oh, am I embarrassing? Am I this and that? All that insecurity and self-consciousness is just gone. And all you think
Absolutely.
about is that I'm grounded. I have the puppies. It's like, it's just
Yeah,
a beautiful thing. That to me
it
was
is.
my experience leading that class. I want to dial back a little bit because you said you were a police officer, and that job, as everybody knows, that's very, very stressful job, like from people who aren't, that's what we see, like that's a tough job, and there's just so much that is going on there. And can you give us a little bit of backstory, the moment you finally process, like, this life does not align with me anymore?
Want more yoga students without changing your sequence or paying for ads? This free guide shows you how to turn one-timers into loyal students. I've taught for years in different spaces, owned a yoga studio, and now have a yoga teacher training school. And here's what works. Connection keeps students coming back, bringing friends, and spreading your name. Grab your free guide now. It's short, simple, and it works. Let's fill your classes the smart way. Don't forget to check the description. Now back to the episode.
And it's time to recognize that call of change. You said you've gone through like a 3 years of, can you call it depression? Do you think that was depression for
Yeah,
you? Okay.
absolutely. Yes, depression. When I so when I went off work, it wasn't, I wish that I had the insight at the time to say I need to go off work, but that's not what happened. I actually completely had a full, anything close to a full breakdown that you can imagine. And I describe it as like Jenga. Each sort of trauma that I've had in my life, each a piece was missing. And when I got into policing, things were a little unsteady. I'd already had a divorce. I'd had things happen in my life that caused a bit of trauma. But through my policing career, of course, each call that I went to was traumatizing, even though at the time I didn't realize it was. I didn't think it was. So those pieces were being pulled out. So that final one just didn't have it, it wasn't a choice. Everything fell down. And so when I ended up off and sitting, realized I was in such a high, first of all, I worked at a very high capacity. I was really high up in the job that I was doing at the time in reconstruction. So I was reconstructing collisions, fatal motor vehicle collisions. So I was really high up in that. So I worked at a really high capacity, and my hypervigilance was, I mean, constant. So I never came out of that. I would come home and I would still be extremely hypervigilant, and that stress and anxiety that I didn't know. If someone asked me back then, and actually it's funny enough, I would hear the word anxiety and I used to kind of laugh. And I think, what is this new buzzword everybody's talking about? Anxiety. Everybody's got anxiety. Little did I know, I was like the most anxious person. No idea. When I went off and everything was wrapped into that job, I'd realized, my gosh, I don't have anything. My identity is strongly identified with being a police officer. So as I worked through with a therapist and sort of came a little bit down and got into a little bit more where I knew my name and that sort of thing, I was able to kind of process through some conversations with her. I realized that I never knew who I was. I just identified with whomever I should be, or I thought I needed to be in that time with whomever it was, with whatever job I had. So policing was perfect because it checked all the boxes for me. It gave me validation. I never felt smart, so it checked that box. She's smart. I did all the things in policing so that I looked like I was the smartest police officer. So when it wasn't there anymore, that identity piece was huge. I struggled to come to terms with releasing it. And I had to get so honest, which was probably the hardest part, was to say, I can't not be a police officer, because then nobody's going to think I'm smart. Nobody's going to think that I'm anything. Like, what am I without that? And that realization, oh my gosh, that was such a hard thing to realize, that I didn't know who I was, that I identified with my jobs or with the my friends or with whatever. So it opened up this massive amount of information that I had to start to process, that this is how I've lived my life, my entire life. And I'm not young. It's a long time. I'm 50 this year. So that's a lot of time to not know who you are. And releasing of that job and saying, I can't go back. It's not healthy for me, because I tried. I did twice. I tried to go back. I tried to, because I really wasn't ready to let go. I was like, I need that validation. And it wasn't until I realized that that's why I was doing it that I was like, this is not good for me. I need to find out who I am. And Muskoka Puppy Yoga helped me do that. A lot of therapy. So it's been 5 years since I've been at work, which is mind blowing. 5 years in May. And in these 5 years, I've finally been able to say, I was a police officer, but I'm not anymore.
That's so beautiful, Sarah. Thank you for that. I'm gonna ask you. You can tell me like, no, Jules, I don't want to talk about this.
I'm an open book, Jules. I'll tell you anything.
So I want to ask, just to give a little bit of background, can you give us a little bit of story how life was for you, and as a child, and what brought you to that state where you're needing validation, you're needing to check all these boxes just to see your worth, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I came from a policing family. My dad was a police officer. Now, when I'm in this place that I'm in now, and I look back, I'm like, okay, so he was experiencing all the things I'm experiencing now, and experienced the last 5 years. So, but back then, I mean, this is like the 80s. It wasn't spoken about. I mean, he still doesn't talk about it. He still doesn't acknowledge any of it, which is unfortunate. I think he understands, but he's retired, and once you get into sort of that age in life, it's hard to tap into those traumas. But so when I look back, things make sense. My sister was born 12 months after I was born, on the same day. So we shared the same birthday. So I didn't know anything other than my sister. So it was the two of us, and we sort of got the label of the Gorrie girls. Like, it was two of us. My mom did everything for just the two of us. So I didn't really ever have an identity. It was always the girls, the two. And then as life progressed a little bit, we moved a few times. When I was 10, my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and it was chronic progressive. Her good days became, or her bad days became her good days. So it just slowly but surely got worse. I was 10. So the focus really shifted from my sister and I to her, and to her getting better. And they didn't know what it was. I mean, again, this was in 85. So in 1985, they didn't even know what MS was. So naturally, of course, everything shifted, and it was about my mom. But that kind of left my sister and I to fend for ourselves, or to kind of, we didn't have as much emotional support, I think, is that what maybe we needed. And then at 17, I left home. I had so many things happen at that time. I actually wrote a chapter in a book, a collaborative book, and I talk a lot about all of that time in my life. And yeah, it was a lot of things that all kind of happened that created that in me. And I think having a police officer as a father, and then the illness, and then my sister and I being born on the same day, and essentially we might as well have been twins. Those things all kind of created this sort of need for me to just find where I could get love, or how, and then that's what I did. So it didn't matter what it was. Even friends. My friends love interior camping. I hate interior camping. I don't want to sleep on the ground. I love a 5-star hotel. That's me. But I would go, and I would hate every minute of it. But because it made my friends happy, and it also had me being accepted into this. So I thought, I just went along with it. And that was my life. I didn't really ever see that that's what I was doing until I sort of was able to sit and be guided into a space that I could see, what do I like? And why don't I ever do something I want to do? So you can see how it was in that childhood I just figured out how to get attention. And it didn't matter how it was. I figured it out with each person. And then I just did that my whole life. I was the yes girl. I was the people pleaser. All the things. I say I'm a former people pleaser. I don't say that anymore.
I struggled with that too. I think though, hearing your story, I think you were looking for like a sense of belonging more than just the attention. Because in hindsight, it seems beautiful to have like a sibling that you can share things with, right? A lot of people would say like, hey, that's awesome. You got like this permanent best friend. But that's the other side of it because you don't get to figure out your own self, your own identity. So your whole life, your identity were attached outside of yourself, right? You had your sister and then your mom got sick, not because you're like, oh my God, now she's taking the attention. It's not that. It's just like life is happening. And it's just like, that's like a revolving, door. And now you're in that place of finding yourself that you didn't even realize. That's why we have that people pleaser, right? Like the trying to fit in and all these things. And that's a sad thing for a young person to experience. And I think that's a universal experience that we all have, right?
Yeah.
But now that you're in a place of not in a stressful job, happy with Muskoka Puppy Yoga, who is Erin now? In your own
Mm.
words, who is Erin to you? Who is she now that you're in this space? Because this is such a total shift from how you
Oh,
were. So
much so. Yeah.
who is Erin now?
Gosh. It's going to be a lifelong journey for sure. But the person I am now, I mean, I've always been, I just didn't acknowledge her. So I've always been compassionate and I have a lot of empathy for people. And that's why going into policing didn't feel too far off. There was a little bit of, at the time, I felt like I just needed a job that would help me raise my children after I divorced my first husband. It didn't seem that far off because I like to help people. But what I found is that how I like to help people is more in a teaching manner, my experiences, and then just sort of, putting it out there. And if what I've gone through has helped anyone else, I love that teaching moment. I also like to learn. I think a learner likes to teach, so it kind of goes hand in hand. Whereas in policing, it's very reactionary. We're not proactive typically. We're very reactionary. So that was the part that didn't align well with me. But I've also found out I like autonomy. I like to be, I think it's because let's really call it probably 50 years from as long as I can remember, I have just gone along with whatever else anybody else wants. Someone's told me what to do or I've followed whatever. And now I want autonomy. I want to say where my life goes. So I definitely like being in charge of me now. I never thought I would. I kind of figured I'm better. I'm a good soldier. I like being told where to go, what to do. No, that's not actually true. The real Erin loves the autonomy and I like being spontaneous, which again, I would never have believed that was part of who I was as well because I really thought I loved the schedule. Turns out I do, but I also like this the spontaneity of, it's a beautiful day. I'm just going to go out, take my dogs for a walk. And whereas before I'd be like, no, I have this schedule, this, very regimented. So yeah, so the person I am now is the authentic, and I'm learning more and more about myself every day. Something new comes up, and the universe keeps putting things in front of me to see how how I'm going to react. I'm really good at defaulting, but I recognize that now, and I'm able to sort of change course and um, yeah, living authentically in this space of autonomy is, I mean, it's so beautiful. It's how I feel like we all should be living, but
Absolutely.
yeah, it's not easy though.
Yeah. Well, it's a work in progress, right? And the thing about being programmed in such a way is deeply rooted. So the old programming would always be like, hello, I'm going to show up now. So there is always that internal battle with it. And I think the beauty of it is that level of awareness that we have now, right?
Yeah.
So my question, because you mentioned about, wanting the validation and being, this very structured human, right? Before I go to my next question, I want to ask you this. What's your relationship with ego now? Because I know ego is always present, right? You can't really escape it. It's there. But what is your relationship with that now? What does it look like compared from before?
Well, I mean, I recognize it now, whereas I didn't, when you said ego to me, I didn't understand even what that meant. I mean, I knew what an ego was, but I didn't fully understand that I actually had one. So now it's that recognition, and then it's the observation of it popping into my life and seeing how, wait a minute, who's running the show here? Like, who's driving the bus? So I think that's the biggest thing is I recognize it. I give myself so much grace now because I've lived 50 years this way. When I do, if I don't have that moment of pause and then be able to think, or if I snap decision something, it's always the old Erin that does that. I give myself a lot of grace and understand like this is a long time. So I'm going to revert all the time. So I have this beautiful piece of understanding myself and knowing that it's okay. I just give myself a lot of grace now and I see my decisions. And sometimes I'm not sure who's deciding, but it's okay. It's okay. We all have it.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. I think that recognizing the ego exists and when it's, taking the wheel and
Yeah.
because I don't think like because a lot of people when they hear ego, this is this immediate reaction of like, what do you mean? I'm like, you know what I mean? Like there's always that fight response. But if you don't put like a negative price to the word ego, it can be beneficial, right? Like
Yeah.
because it could guide you. And then it also, when you have the awareness of it, then you get to pause and be like, okay, is this positive now or am I just in for a ride and then there is no groundedness in this decision? So that's, I think, is the beautiful thing about awareness and recognizing it and then catching the old patterns and giving yourself grace when they do, right? It's just a
Oh,
beautiful, beautiful thing.
yeah.
And I want to ask you how yoga plays a part in your life and what does your practice look like? Because you said you were like hardcore vinyasa when you started, right? It's more like a
Oh, yeah.
fitness, right? And then it fits perfectly because where you were, right? High
Yes.
stress, always on, always
Yeah.
tense up, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
now you're obviously more balanced and more grounded. So what does your yoga practice look like and how is that integrated in your life?
Oh, it's such a night and day. If someone tried to get me to go to some high-powered vinyasa, I would not. I just couldn't do like physically, can I do it? Yes. Do I want to mentally? No. I'm so in love right now with yin. And it's so funny because the idea of yin years ago, even only 5, 6 years ago, I was like, no, I am not sitting in a posture for 5 minutes. That's not happening. Whereas now it's like what my body craves is that deep tissue feeling of just being and experiencing the asanas now, feeling what feelings come up and being curious about, wow, why is that happening or why am I feeling this? So that's my practice now. I'm just loving the connection with my body and my mind because I was so disconnected from it for so long. My body was giving me signs during my job and I ignored it. I didn't pay attention at all to it. And now looking back, I'm like, it's so interesting. Like our bodies give us signals that, the gas is running out. You can keep feeling me, but it's not working. Ignored it. So now I'm loving the connection that I'm feeling with yoga. So the yin yoga restorative, anything slow and beautiful is where I'm connecting right now.
And how does yoga playing a part in your everyday life?
I try to practice. I would be a full-faced liar if I told you I did it every day. Because I don't. I would love to, but I try to get it in through the week. Usually it's when I'm starting to feel like I need this. I need a bit of grounding. I need to come off my laptop and away from the business side of my puppy yoga and just sort of get onto my mat and move. So I would love it to be a daily practice again. So it's something that I definitely want to get back into my life, into my daily world for sure. It's just not there yet. And I'm okay with that. I give
Yeah,
myself so
absolutely.
much grace
Yeah.
now. Whereas before I'd be like, no, 6 in the morning, every day, yoga, which kind of defeats the purpose.
But like if like for people that are listening, I think there is this phases in life where it just where you're at right now. This is the
Yeah.
journey right now. And we're not saying like I like yin classes. I'm all for that because it gets you grounded. And I was
Yeah.
the same with you when I found out about yin, and I was also like, I don't want to do that. That's too goddamn slow. But then I
I
ended up
know.
going to Costa Rica, and then I did my training there, and I was like, oh yeah, I needed this.
I
And
know.
it's just a different perspective. And because back then I was also having, public speaking issues, and then English being my second language. So this is perfect. I only
Right?
get to say 3 words and you all just stay there. And all I gotta say is inhale, exhale. Hey, I'll do that. Just in case you forgot. So I
It's
was
so
perfect with
true.
it. But
Need a
now
little guidance. Yes, as little guidance as possible.
but back then it's just a different life, right?
Hmm.
And I think for practitioners, that's where the grace would come in. And I know there's a lot of noise outside. People have opinions about a lot of things these days. So
Mm.
when you're practicing, if this is the one that connects you with yourself, or in that phase of life, that's where you feel like you're connected with yourself, then just be, right? That's
Absolutely.
fine.
Yes. Yes.
And for you though, like you reinvented yourself from police officer, high intensity, probably you're sleeping and you're still like, I'm ready to go.
100%. 100%. Barely
So,
sleeping, one eye open.
so now that you are very grounded and steady and all these changes, right? So my question to you is your healing. How does yoga play a part in this healing process to you? The emotional, the trauma, the mental, the all bit, the parts that beyond the asana practice. How did that impacted that process, and how did it help you, or maybe it didn't? So give us a little bit of insight.
Yeah, I think when doing my teacher training at the time that I did, I still struggled to know who I was at that time because I'd gone off work in May and I was doing my teacher training that at the end of that year. So it was still very much I was still very much in that hypervigilance. So I had a really I didn't I took it gosh, how am I trying to speak here? It was still very much an academic learning regimented thing for me at the time.
Intellectualize, yeah.
100%. I did not, even the meditations, learning meditation, I was still, that's how I'd been for so long. So it's only now that I look back and I'm like, gosh, I mean, I can't wait to take my 300 because that's where it's really going to land for me now. Whereas it didn't even come close because I couldn't accept it. I didn't have an understanding about myself enough. So now I'm able to receive and have a bit of a understanding about who I am in order to receive that. It didn't really help back then. I had this I don't know if I had this eat, pray, love thing in my mind, but it was like
It did
something
affect a lot of people.
right? I really thought I'm going to take my yoga training and I'm going to be healed. And my yoga training came and went, and I was still the same person. And I was like, huh, that's funny. And then it wasn't until as I started to gain in, my talk therapy was huge. I did ayahuasca, next level, huge. And then I did ketamine. So I've done some very drastic, dramatic modalities for my healing. And each one of them really shifted me. And so now with my yoga practice and with wanting to do my 300, I think that the vulnerability that I am willing to be, I will be able to accept that sort of healing that yoga will bring, and yoga does bring, better. Because yeah, I didn't. It just I didn't have the capacity to understand it, to see. Now looking back, I'm like, well, no wonder. I didn't know who I was. So how was I going to have anything be, I couldn't, I heard people talking and I'm like, I wonder if they're just saying it. Like, I'm gonna say it, but I don't believe and buy into any of this because I couldn't. It was like water just bouncing off of the surface because I couldn't let it absorb. I didn't know how. And it's only now that I'm like, wow, looking back. So yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, I just didn't, but it's now that I'm able to do it. So I'm glad I took it because it's given me the ability to teach and to learn, but it's now that I'm like, wow, I'm having such insight into how my practice and how yoga is healing, the moments of just stillness. And
That's
I
beautiful.
think that's where people struggle, right? Is that those moments that you sit, that brain is going, and that unless you understand what's happening, you would just like, no, 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 gotta stop it.
I think the intellectualizing things impede that progress and connection to the self, the true self, because we are not, just supposed to be here. There's so much more, right? And intelligence is great to have, logic is great to have, but if that's all you're running, it doesn't encompass the whole you. So there will always be that missing piece. And being a police officer and having that job and where you are now, do you think that people in that high stress job would benefit a lot for like having yoga in their life? And if you believe that, which I'm guessing you do because you have your experiences, if I was a police officer and then I I come to you or you notice me, we had a conversation, let's put a scenario in this thing. And how would you tell someone, how would you encourage a fellow officer to include yoga in their life in a way that doesn't sound too frou-frou? You know what I
Right.
mean?
And it's true. Yeah. When you get woo woo, they look at you like, oh, okay, she's legit crazy. Um, you know what I really realized is that that's what I love about the puppy yoga is that they will buy into that. They will come to that. And bringing them just to that class and saying, follow the practice. When a puppy comes to your mat, sit down, cuddle the puppy. But when the puppy runs away, come back, start moving. There's no pressure. Nobody's watching you. The class is very, very gentle. There's no postures that are too difficult for a beginner. And I've had some of my colleagues in class that they said, we don't do yoga. We would never do yoga, but we actually kind of liked it. And I'm like, So if I was just teaching a regular yoga class, it would be really hard to get my colleagues to come. There's some, I mean, a lot of the women we're a little bit open, a little bit more open, but the men feel like, I'm not flexible. Like, well, how do you think you're going to get flexible? I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Like, maybe come and learn to be flexible. But when you add that element of puppies, they forget that the yoga is happening. And then they realize during, any one of the asanas, a thread the needle or something where they're stretching a place in their body that is so sore from sitting in a cruiser all day. They're getting a good glute stretch. So all of a sudden they're like, huh, I kind of like the way that felt. But they didn't feel the intimidation in coming into the class at all, at all. Not even a little bit, because they're like, oh, there's puppies? Sure, I'm there. So that's why I love it so much. That's why I love bringing our classes to first responders or to any kind of male dominated business for some kind of team building or something. Is because I do have the men come up afterwards and say, I didn't know I like yoga so much, because they always say to me, I'm not here for the yoga. I'm like, oh, you're here for the puppies? And they're like, well, no, I'm not really here for the puppies either. I don't know, I got dragged here or whatever. The piece that I think helps me bring them in. And then if they feel good, then maybe they're going to be a little less intimidated to getting into it. But yoga can help you calm your mind. But gosh, is it ever hard when you've been doing it as a job and you are in hypervigilance? It is really hard to take someone out of that. It's not easy. Yeah, they have to have that want to do it. So yeah, to answer your question, I think I can get people in my class a lot easier than I can if I was just teaching a regular class. So I kind of
Because
hook them in
there's,
that way.
yeah, because there's that removal, right, of the judgmental mind. Because there's a lot going on in the brain and an industry that is so high stress. And also, you are seen as authority, right? And now you're going to this practice where it welcomes vulnerability. Now that's like a different topic,
Right?
right?
Yes.
You know, when people say like, but I'm not flexible enough, don't come for the flexibility. Just come for whatever. Just give it a shot. Just for the puppies. It doesn't matter how you get there. But when you get there, keep an open mind, pretty much.
Pretty much.
That's right. That's how it will at least give you an idea or baseline for your judgment, right?
Yeah.
Like I always tell this to people, like when someone, you know, have a opinion about me because of so and so. I'm like, dude, get to know me first. Give yourself a reason to not like me. And
Right.
then you can be like, I don't like her. Then I will be like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
things like that. But I thank you for that because I think it would really, really help people who are in that high stress industry to get into yoga. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the flexibility. It doesn't have to be anything else, really. Just go, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Maybe the reason or the effect of it will come to you afterwards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I want to talk about Puppy Yoga. Can you give our audience, our listeners, a little bit of background of Puppy Yoga, what goes on in Puppy Yoga, and how do you think having puppies in a yoga class create a different special therapeutic effect to the people who attend this kind of classes?
Hey, just a reminder to check the description before you go. And don't forget to rate the show.
Yeah. So there's two things that happen in our class that I love because it's a very even balance. 50% is that beautiful partnership that we have with the breeders. So COVID kind of showed a lot of our breeders who they've always known, but it really highlighted when puppies don't get socialized, they don't turn into very well-adjusted dogs. So that really is the partnership that we have with them, is that they get to bring their puppies to a space that it's safe, it's controlled, there's new smells, new space, new feels, new everything. So they have this beautiful exposure in a very loving environment. And so that's that side. So then the other side is that the people that get to come to our classes experience this therapeutic benefit that animal therapy has already been proven. So we take animal therapy, which is a beautiful modality of therapy, and we couple it with yoga, which, as we've been talking now for the last little while, is a beautiful space for healing. And you put them together, you have this incredible space for healing, for if you have grief. My space has become a very safe space for many. And I talk about my journey now. I spent we're going to be 2 years in May. So it's probably been over about the last 6 months, 7 months that I've actually felt myself in a space that I can talk about it. But it encourages those who do come because I do think that there's not many of us that are not affected by some kind of trauma or grief in our life right now. They're recognizing that it is a safe place to come and that it is somewhere where they're able to land and maybe identify a little bit with that when they see that I too am going through the same thing that they are, this community that we're sort of bringing together. And so I love that that's what our mission is, that that's what our Muskoka Puppy Yoga was born out of, and that I can encourage people. I get a lot of people at the end of class saying, I'm off too. and I haven't said anything to anybody. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. You know, the compassion that we can have for one another and the community that we can build in just a, when you think about it, it's such a simple thing, yoga and puppies. But that is why I do what I do. And that's why I've created it. And that's what I love, why Muskoka Puppy Yoga. I think that's why people keep coming, is because we're all experiencing something right now. I mean, the world is crazy. So much is happening. My gosh, especially in your country and many countries. I mean, we're feeling it too. Power of living in the moment, and you're in that moment for 1 hour, and the puppies can teach us a lot about living in that moment. So that's where that the whole concept of the Muskoka Puppy Yoga comes from, and that's why I do what I do. It's a very balanced partnership with the breeders. Sometimes people like to get on my social media and have opinions about what it is we're doing, and they think we're exploiting puppies, but they love it. They have free reign of a open room with loving people for a whole hour. So it's like they're living their best life for that hour.
I love it. I think that's what my favorite part about it, because our opinions are based on our experiences, right? We always have this bias, right? And because of goat yoga, which I've never experienced, right? You would have like, oh, they're just exploiting, or they're just putting a lot of, whatever kind of thing to yoga or something like that. But what I experienced myself leading this class, it's that it's not like we're putting the puppies to work and they're like
I
digging
know.
grounds and shit. They're not like, it's a very beautiful energetic exchange, because the humans get that therapeutic feel, right? Like people who are always in their heads, which this, like you said, it's a great avenue for people in a high stress job, or, being a police officer, to get them into it, right? Because it removes the brain. It removes that, like, that ego or logic or whatever it is you call it, right? It removes that because there's something that grounds you and connects you, right? And then for the puppies, now they get this environment where they get a safe place to socialize and a great group of people, loving people. Because come on, if you go to like puppy yoga and you don't like puppies, like, why are you there in the first place?
Right.
So there is this exchange. And to me, that just shows who you are. And this is where your growth or journey show up in what you are offering to the people that come. And I think that's the reason why your Muskoka Puppy Yoga has become, like, a great success. And you mentioned your book, and I know it's coming out soon. So
It's out.
is
It's
it
out.
out now?
It's
Oh,
out.
awesome.
Yeah.
So
It's out.
I'm gonna give you this last part, because unfortunately an hour goes by so fast these days.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. We could talk forever, you and me, Jules.
I know. So right now I want to give you this space to talk about the offerings that you have, where Muskoka Puppy Yoga is going to be, and your book. For people listening, we'll include all the links at the description, so you can also check that out. All right, Erin, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. So we do, Muskoka Puppy Yoga does here in the town I live in Huntsville, Ontario, Canada. We do one class on Saturday and one class on Sunday.
Okay.
Not always, because of course it's where the puppies are available. But we have, in this almost 2 years, I've been able to connect with a lot of local breeders typically. And now we've branched out to many different communities where it won't make any sense to you from where you are, but we're in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada right now, and that we do usually once a month. We're in North Bay, Ontario, which is also usually once a month. Sudbury, usually once a month, Milton, and then here in Huntsville. So our flagship studio is here in Huntsville. I try to run that every weekend because we have so many breeders, but our other offerings outside, and we just offered Las Vegas.
Hey.
So we're super excited. And yeah, I think what sets us apart from a lot of the other studios, because I certainly did not invent this, is just, it's me, really. It's just what I've been through, how this has helped my healing journey. And I extend that out to all of the participants that come in hopes that might help them. And then, yes, I was approached to write in a collaborative book with, there's 12 other women, so there's 13 of us that wrote a chapter in a book about our journey. So mine, it was hard to like shrink it down to a chapter because I have a lot of things. So I'm actually currently writing my actual memoir, my actual book, which will be out in November of this year. But a little sneak peek is in this beautiful collaborative book of women from all walks of life. 12, there's 13 of us, and our journeys. There's from grief to trauma.
Well, I'm excited about this book, and I can't wait to grab a copy of it and read more about you. And everyone, all the informations that you need to get a hold of Erin and everything that she's doing, I'll put it in the description so you can always reach her and approach her. And if you want to bring Muskoka Puppy Yoga to your place, if it's doable, maybe Erin can make it happen. But I'm just saying, there you go. Well, Erin, thank you so much for gracing us with your time and energy and all the technical difficulties. Thank you so much for being on Modern Yoga Talks and everything that you're sharing, your journey and your bravery and vulnerability that you share to the world. Thank you so much. Thanks. Bye, Erin.